Spill the beans.
Yeah, so as you said, I was at an event at this fabulous new London hotel last night, Raffles London, and it was a big event for raising money for London's air ambulance charity, of which William's patron. He's very passionate about this because, of course, he was an air ambulance pilot himself in East Anglia, and that had a real effect on him and his future outlook on life and the way he wants to conduct himself as prince as well as monarch. So he was already scheduled to do this. They've got a big £15 million fundraising campaign they're trying to work towards. So I think it would have taken him a lot not to have gone. So he was determined to be there. And I actually thought he was incredibly dignified. He looked very well. As he came in, one of the waiting cameras outside, the journalist there shouted out a question to him. Now, you'll know this as well, Richard. Members of the royal family don't normally like that. And you're not really meant to do it. But I think under the circumstances, they understood. And he actually replied and said, thank you very much for all the kind of kind messages we've had. And that was repeated inside in his speech. And he made a point of saying, thank you for all the messages, not just regarding his father, but also Catherine and how much it's meant to him. But I think we were chatting about this actually in the kind of green room before. There's not a lot of events you go to that Tom Cruise is there and actually people's eyes would be on somebody else.
Well, yeah, Rebecca, you were also telling me about 14-year-old Rebecca English and her deep love for Tom Cruise.
Well,
where were your eyes?
I did have one poster on my wall. I can't
Just
lie.
The one?
Yeah. But it was great because watching the lineup, and I see this a lot, we were chatting about this, I see this a lot at royal events. You see some really big famous names, but all standing there very nervously, not really knowing what to do with their hands, kind of going, oh God, we're about to meet them. And actually Tom Cruise was the same. And I think I've got some video I might be able to share actually showing that. He was quite nervous. They have met a couple of times before, but there was a very kind of warm bonhomie there. And there's a great video I took of them standing there kind of comparing their tuxedos and how each other looked.
Their heights.
Surely the big question is, was there an invitation for the newly crowned legend of aviation, Prince Harry?
Oh, very cheeky,
Or could he
Richard.
not compete with Top Gun?
Yeah, well.
No, why would you pass up the chance to have a legend of aviation at the air ambulance?
Well, you could argue there were two already modest legends of aviation
True.
being Tom Cruise and Prince William.
I mean, jokes aside, having somebody, of Tom's level of fame wanting to take pictures with you at a British charity, it's not bad, is it?
No, I genuinely I mean it. I mean, all eyes were on William rather than Tom Cruise. I just think it shows the level of celebrity there is around William and Catherine as a couple, as well as being heirs to the throne. Actually, that was a very sweet point in the evening. The boss of the air ambulance charity made a point of saying how proud they were to have William as patron, not because he is a member of the royal family or the future king, but because he's a pilot and really gets what they're trying to do.
So, I don't know. There's sort of an irony, isn't there, Richard Eden, in Harry's moved to California and to the Hollywood set, and then Tom Cruise has flown over to choose this prince to
Well, I think part of the point of Harry and Meghan moving to California was to join that Hollywood royalty, and they'd be the real, overseas royal family with their own court. And here we are with the biggest name in Hollywood coming over and courting Prince William, and Harry's just quietly, slipping back home. So, yeah, I think there is a real paradox there.
It's weird, isn't it? But Richard Kay, I mean, I think obviously the palace may well be keen to play it down. It's business as usual, nothing to see here. But this would have been a big moment for William.
It is a big moment. Of course it is. And he knows that he's going to have to step up. But quite how it's going to be played out, as Rebecca says, we're not entirely sure yet. The palace love playing everything down. Everything is always calm. But underneath the surface, their feet are going like that. And there must be concern about how they're going to actually manage public expectation, how they're going to manage the roles of the senior royals in the coming weeks and probably months, as Rebecca says.
Well, and also they probably won't be too fond of a lot of the chat going on at the moment from constitutional experts who are, one described where we're as a soft regency, another as this being a potential constitutional crisis, putting a burden on William. What do you think is the facts in that?
Well, I don't think we're at a constitutional crisis yet. But we are in uncharted waters. We haven't had a monarch receiving this kind of treatment since the days of King George VI. And in those days, that was the late Queen's father, of course, the public wasn't really kept informed of what his illness was. He had lung cancer. So they are being very open, which I think is they should be commended for in keeping the public abreast of what's going on with his illness. But the issue of regency is bound to crop up, because if Charles is to become incapacitated, then things will have to pass to William, and they'll have to pass rapidly.
Gosh, I mean, obviously nobody wants anything but the speedy recovery of the king, but Rebecca, surely all of this can't help but focus William's mind on, that job is an inevitable part of his future.
I think it must be a very difficult time for him emotionally, which is why I was so impressed with the kind of dignity and the confidence he showed at that event I went to with him last night. Because, of course, only kind of 18 months or so ago, he moved to Windsor to have a kind of quieter family life for him, his wife and his children and himself, as in conjunction with his royal duties. And I can imagine he thought that quiet family life would last him for, well, at least until he got 2 children in senior school, maybe even 3. Now, obviously, we all hope that what's happened this week is merely a cancer scare for the king and nothing more, more serious for him. But of course, all those different eventualities will be going through his mind, and it could be a very big life change for him.
Richard Eden, how do you think he's finding, mentally that balance? I think the public is very supportive that Catherine and William are very family focused, but he also has a keen sense of duty as well. Where's the middle ground? I
mean, there was a hint of that in his speech last night, wasn't there, where he joked about kind of how ironic to find myself here at an air ambulance event when I haven't been able to escape medical discussions and matters for the past few weeks. Yeah. So that's really dominated things. I mean, obviously we know very, very little about what's happened to Catherine, and it doesn't sound like we're going to find out more in a hurry. And then we have everything with King Charles. So he's got a lot going on. I think it's going to be one of the most difficult times of his life, really, isn't it? That he's facing up to that future at the same time as trying to help his wife and his children. So it's difficult times.
It's a lot. Well, we'll start with a comment from last week's programme. Lots of you wrote in again saying that it was unfair that the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh were dubbed junior royals. Ameline says, calling Edward and Sophie junior royals is like saying they have to sit at the kids' table for Christmas dinner. Remember those days, don't we, all of us? While Annie Evans wrote about the scandal affecting the African parks of which Prince Harry is president, she says Harry should have gone straight out to Africa to address this issue instead of just writing a bloody letter. I'm imagining she must be British. The Americans don't tend to say bloody. Now to the comments from Tuesday's special programme. Layla G has this to say: it's brave to share this diagnosis with the world. As an oncology nurse of 24 years, the variables of this illness are endless. I think it's a sign of bad taste to speculate on his condition. Let's wish him a speedy and complete recovery. Elle White, meanwhile, says, I may have been born in America, but my heart belongs to England. Long live the King. Oh, thank you for that. Let's turn now to the very quick trip that Prince Harry made to the UK. Rebecca, Harry was in the UK, was it even 24 hours and even, a very short time with his father?
I think it was 25 hours.
Oh, okay, forgive me. Okay.
But still, I mean, the point is made that it was a very whirlwind trip, and there's been some speculation about whether it was, 30 or 45 minutes spent with his father at Clarence House, but it was a very short amount of time, given the amount of time he spent to get here. Now, I wouldn't necessarily personally read too much into that, because I know the king was tired and he was always planning to go to Sandringham that day. And I do think there's significance. He made a point of spending time with his son, especially given what's happened over the last few years.
It's a long way to come for 30 to 45 minutes.
Well, and actually I asked someone the other day, very well placed, and said, what do you think it was? And immediately they snapped back, guilt.
Really?
You know, there's a lot of, you know, I think while the king has always made clear that he wants to leave the door ajar for Harry, and we discussed that on this programme on Tuesday, didn't we? I think there's a lot of people in the wider royal household that find what's happened over the last few years, not just in relation with the King and the Prince of Wales, but also with Queen Elizabeth, very difficult to forgive.
I wonder if any of those people spoke to Robert Jobson for today's Daily Mail piece, Richard Kay. It's a very interesting picture of the visit saying, and I quote, "The King was unhappy about what amounted to a fait accompli served up by an emotional but well-meaning son." Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's a very interesting insight into what may have taken place. I think the thing one shouldn't stress about the king and his relationships with his children is that despite being a loving father to two sons, he has throughout his life, it has been regimented and organised for him. Everything works to an endless series of deadlines. That helicopter was clattering around ready to go. The king is the kind of person who would have said, I don't want it wasting fuel. We've got to get going. He hates keeping people waiting. He hates being kept waiting. And the other person to consider in that meeting yesterday is, of course, the Queen. Now, the Queen has less reason to welcome Prince Harry with open arms. She was treated disgracefully by him in his memoir, and she would have been very anxious about the amount of time that Harry would have spent with Charles, because she wouldn't want Charles to get upset or stressed about issues if indeed that was on Harry's mind. Let's take it at face value. Let's assume Harry was there doing his filial duty. He would have, after the king phoned him, which we know he did over the weekend at the time of his illness diagnosis, one can picture Harry saying, "Pa, I'll be there, I'll come at once." And Harry saying, "Dear boy, darling boy, there's no need for that, but if you want to come, of course, you'll be very welcome." But just how welcome and for how long, it is throwing up endless speculation. I mean, why didn't Harry spend the night at Clarence House, his old bedroom upstairs? Those bedrooms no longer exist.
Well, it's a dressing room now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And why didn't Charles say, "Come up to Sandringham and let's have a few days in Norfolk"? We don't think that happened either. So there are all these imponderals, but yes, it was a very interesting insight.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it, Richard Eden? A half-hour meeting and a reported hotel stay. The family's got more rooms in their houses than anyone in Britain. It doesn't really feel like the open arms welcome that perhaps Harry might have wanted.
No, but it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, we all understand that Harry, when he was told that his father had this diagnosis, will have wanted to be with him. But there was something about the way that the press statement was made very quickly, within half an hour. It sort of felt like he also wanted it to be known that he had to go there. It was, for public consumption. And that sort of made people uncomfortable, I think. And then he comes, and who, wants to meet Harry now? That's the thing. Remember, he's lost touch with a lot of his old friends. In his memoirs, he admitted that people contacted him after the appalling Oprah Winfrey interview to tell him, "We thought what you did was wrong." He mentioned the Van Cutsem family, some of his best old friends. And, these are people that normally he'd want to stay, but, perhaps his old friends don't really want to see him now.
It feels like it's just not his country anymore in a way.
That's the thing. It's tricky. He's taken himself away from that. And now he's a bit of a stranger when he comes. So it's an odd situation.
And picking up Richard Kay's point, why not just stay at Sandringham?
Well, he needs to be invited, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But also Sandringham now, oh dear, it's got terrible memories for him, because that's where they had the Sandringham summit, where he talks about that at great length in his memoirs, how, that was a fait accompli. It was kind of, he felt that it was, he was told that he had to leave and quit duties, and bring back a lot of bad memories from there. So I'm not sure he'd be rushing back to Norfolk in a hurry.
And Rebecca, obviously there was lots of speculation before even Harry's plane landed. Will he or won't he meet with William? The Mirror newspaper quoting a source close to Harry saying, if the opportunity were to arise to see the Prince of Wales, then the Duke would have gladly accepted it. What do you make of that?
I'm not so sure about that, I have to say, because Again, I was speaking to someone who's very well placed this morning, and they said there's a lot of people around this situation that claim that they know what's going on, but actual fact, very, very few people do. And I think that's why we're always quite honest on Palace Confidential. If we don't know, we won't say it, and we'll be honest about it. And there is a real martyr going on at the moment over what happened at Clarence House from both sides, from Harry's side and from Buckingham Palace. I think out of respect for the King's condition, which is serious, he's very optimistic about his treatment, but it is a serious condition. And obviously, if this meeting went well, it might, open the door slightly for relations to be further thawed. So I don't place a great deal of faith in that, I have to say. What I do think is interesting is from Kensington Palace's side, they were very open very quickly that there would be no meeting between William and Harry while he was here. And I think that was very illuminating.
Gosh, I mean, Richard Kay, Harry, obviously he has been at pains in recent times to stress, that he cares about his relationship with the King. It's, they're on speaking terms, etc. But it seems like there's a little bit more water to flow under the bridge, right?
Well, he has a funny way of showing it, doesn't he? I mean, it's going to take a very long time, if ever, for trust to be rebuilt. I think, as Rebecca says, the situation with William is unbridgeable in terms of going back to the kind of relationship that they once had. With the King, it is different. The King is someone who doesn't like feuds. He would want to put it behind him, but he's very mindful of what Harry has said about Camilla. I mean, he said the most outrageous things about her, which were palpably untrue. And that is a big issue for him. And the most important person in the King's life is the Queen. And I think he will put her happiness and priority above those of his son at the moment.
Richard Eden, you've written about the brothers in your newsletter for Palace this week.
Just that there's been so much coverage over the past week with calls for it should be William who is the one who proffers an olive branch. He should be the one who's mending fences. And this coverage it's really annoyed me because it's made it seem as though it's William's duty to be the one who tries to, rebuild those bridges. But I don't think it is at all. I think from everything I hear is that, Harry has to apologise. He has to really say, I'm sorry for all the hurt that I've put you through, that I've caused to Catherine and to William particularly, before they would say, fine, and they can try to start putting it behind them. But until that happens, no way. It's not up to William to do that, not at all.
Oh dear. Well, Rebecca, I'm now going to switch to what is regularly becoming the regular Princess Anne section of the show. You've written a lot about her, not only doing her job, picking up the slack, being out there for the firm, but also what she's been wearing while she's been doing it.
I think it was a really interesting spot this week that she was wearing on her engagements. I think it was on Tuesday. Sorry, this week has been pretty busy. I'm trying to remember what happened on which day. That she was wearing a very distinctive purple check coat that the Queen wore in 2010, I think it was. Now, I spoke to the Palace and they tried to, it's quite funny, they tried to speak to Princess Anne's dresser for me, but she only works part-time because Princess Anne really gets her own stuff together. And so they couldn't actually, couldn't actually pin anyone down. So we're not quite sure if they had the same coat or if it was the Queen's coat. And Princess Anne was quite frankly too busy working to answer any calls. But, they might have had the same taste for all we know. But I just thought it was a really lovely touch.
I'm clearly nowhere near the superior royal watcher that you are. I would never have recognised that from so long ago, that coat. That's incredible.
You do tend to kind of spot these things.
Yeah.
And she, and Princess Anne does tend to wear the same things again and again and again. But that's what we love about her. Because she can still fit into things she was wearing 30, 40 years ago. And, myself included, there's not a lot of us that can say that.
There was another striking scene when Anne arrived for that job was she got out of the car and put up her own umbrella. And you do not see that very often with royals. The king, the late queen, princes and princesses normally have an umbrella proffered for them to stand underneath.
100%, yeah, that's a good point.
That is Anne.
Yeah.
Is it Anne that she's so humble and wants to do that, or is it Anne thinking, I don't trust anybody else to put up this bloody umbrella correctly?
It's not neither really. I'm sorry, but she's a no-nonsense kind of person, and really she would like everyone else to be like that too. Yeah. She just wants to get on with it.
I mean, I don't know if we talked about it on Tuesday, but certainly I did a big piece of the Mail this week about an example of one day this week and what she did, and starting at 9 o'clock at Gatcombe, getting to Windsor, up to Nottinghamshire. Someone had a sandwich waiting for her. She didn't eat it. She doesn't often eat it. Then back down to London, a quick turnaround, 45 minutes, back out to a job in the evening, back again. I mean, I know people like to say, well, they're not at the coalface, and they're not, and they wouldn't claim to be. But it's a pretty punishing schedule, I think, for a woman of 73, and she does it with such minimum fuss.
It's incredible.
Minimum faff.
And it has, sorry to interrupt, has she stepped in for the king on any of these duties?
So she did this week at the investiture. So she carried out an investiture for him this week. William did an investiture this week, but he was always planned to do that. And that's
Sorry to interrupt. For some of our American viewers particularly might not know what an investiture is.
It's when the member of the family hands out honours like MBEs, CBEs, OBEs, knighthoods to worthy members of the community.
I love the way you rattle those. I have a knighthood. Yeah,
that's a whole nother programme, Joe.
Yeah. We'll have to do it. Yeah.
So she did stand in from that. But actually, quite a few people have made the point to me when we've talked about this issue of stepping up, is people like her carry out 400 odd engagements a year, every year. So her diary is pretty bam, 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 bam. She doesn't actually have a lot of time for that. So they've got to work out if there are duties they need to pick up, where can they slot them into?
I'm really quite tired now after just even hearing that schedule. But to another key woman in the family throughout the King's health problems. One woman has been either by his side or out representing the family. Of course, we are talking about Queen Camilla. Step forward. We've heard on the show recently has been a rock to His Majesty, and to mark this, here are some of our...
...is heating up as they target the Daily Mail ahead of Prince Harry's, I believe, very unwise court case coming in just a few weeks' time. Jack Royston of Newsweek, close to the Sussex, has reported a source close to Meghan Markle saying his readers can judge for themselves whether publishing every intimate detail of an 81-year-old man's most serious medical issues and using that as a vehicle for a hit piece against his daughter simply because you dislike her is anything other than ethically bankrupt. But I would argue, and they're talking about Thomas Markle there, Thomas Markle, I would argue the only person in the Thomas Markle affair that is ethically bankrupt is his daughter. That to me is very clear. But what's interesting is when you look back and you think about everything we've known about Meghan Markle over the past 5 years. What about the court case that originally meant private emails and text messages sent by Meghan were made public? This was at the Court of Appeal, of course. And it showed that Meghan had intentionally phrased her first letter to Thomas Markle so that it would play well with the public in the event that it was leaked. She told Jason Knauf, now a senior aide to Prince William and Catherine, obviously everything I've drafted is with the understanding that it could be leaked. So I have been meticulous in my word choice, but please do let me know if anything stands out to you as a liability. She added, given I've only ever called him Daddy, it may make sense to open as such despite him being less than paternal. And in the unfortunate event that it leaked, it would pull at the heartstrings. So this is a woman who has strategically used her father throughout to try and pull at our heartstrings, yet now is suggesting that it is the Daily Mail that is ethically bankrupt. To look into this story, joined now by royal YouTube sensation According to Taz. Fascinating that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle continue to go down this path, even with everything that we have learned in regards to their own conduct, Tash, both with the Daily Mail and with the treatment of her father. Who's going to come out top here?
Honestly, it's I think it just makes Thomas Markle look better at this point, because it shows that she's used her father to manipulate the public, and it's just not washing this time. There were a lot of people that did side with Meghan originally, thinking, oh, it's terrible what Thomas did. But now we've seen Meghan's true nature and her love of calling the paparazzi herself. The way he was treated, it just doesn't suit the crime, does it? He has been punished thoroughly by her, and he's still being punished all of these years later. But for her to say about the Daily Mail are ethically bankrupt, she's morally bankrupt. And I think, I mean, we had a discussion not that long ago, Dan, with regards to this. She's accusing the Daily Mail of leaking every single step of the way, but it was actually Meghan that has given press releases every single step of the way. She was the one that released that she was giving him a letter, that she hand wrote a letter, the contents of the letter, when the letter had been delivered, what, the fact that her father hadn't contacted her after giving him the letter. This has all come from her team, from her spokesperson, from her sources. She is the one that has briefed the media. And to be making swipes again at Caroline Graham, who has been by her father's side, she was in bed, as it were, well, probably not, but, with Omid Scobie. I mean, she got him behind palace walls. He was inside, I think, Buckingham Palace for final events. She basically got him onto the royal rota, as it were. And, obviously to only write favourable things about her, but she really is a hypocrite. Both she and Harry are complete and utter hypocrites. But yes, so using again her father's illness and everything that Thomas Markle has been through to further try and manipulate people, I can only imagine the things that she put in that letter. But yeah, total and utter hypocrisy from those two every time.
Couldn't agree more. And then, Tash, we received just before Christmas the word that Harry and Meghan are now going to expand Archewell. And I'm always suspicious about this, okay? But they're going to expand Archewell to bring the children into this, Archie and Lilibet. Now, I find this totally bizarre, given that I thought they wanted to keep the children out of the public eye. They're still incredibly young. They're private citizens who have no royal function, even though they keep their prince and princess title. They keep their place in the line of succession. So what on earth are you doing bringing them into your very PR-driven philanthropy? Well, I know it's to try and make them famous, isn't it? And the commercial ventures that are going to come off that. But let me just take you through this reporting. And why I'm choosing the People magazine report here, Tash, is because I want us to unpick the propaganda behind it, because we know that this is PR spin direct from Harry and Meghan to People magazine, who they use as their main form of paid PR. So let's look at the story now. Headline: Meghan Markle and Prince Harry rename Archewell Foundation as they expand their mission with Archie and Lilibet. A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wood and Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www.outspoken.live. I mean, Tash, I find it funny, by the way. Don't you imagine that Harry and Meghan probably right now are thinking, because they're so woke, oh God, it was terrible that we named this foundation after our son. You know, how are we going to bring Lily into it? But it's like, poor Lily, you got lumbered with the late Queen's nickname, something she didn't want. But anyway, let's keep going through this. And they say, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry ushering in a new chapter for their charitable work, one that includes their children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Well, surely the first question there is why? Why are you doing that, given you have been so public about not involving the children in your work? It goes on to say, on Friday, the December 19th, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex announced that their Archewell Foundation has been named Archewell Philanthropies as their organisation marks its 5th anniversary, a moment that the couple views as both a reflection on what they've built and a launch pad for what comes next. The organisation said in an announcement, the next chapter allows Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, to broaden their global philanthropic efforts as a family, with meaningful reach and maximum impact grounded in the same values, partnership, and their commitment to show up and do good. The couple also describes the evolution as a family effort, with the new structure creating space for their children, Archie 6 and Lilibet 4, to be part of the long-term philanthropic identity they're building. After the 5 beautiful years, the Archewell Foundation is becoming Archewell Philanthropies. The charitable entity allows the couple and their children to expand upon their global philanthropic endeavours as a family. But then you start working out what this is really about, Tash. I mean, let's not talk about them taking the children to the homeless shelter. This is where things get interesting. People understands, which means they've been told directly by Harry and Meghan, that Archewell Philanthropies will still operate within a non-profit structure, but now through a fiscal sponsorship model. Okay, it's making sense now. It's about the moolah. It always is about the greenback, isn't it? But then people immediately jumps into, say, a common setup that lets charitable projects grow more easily around the world. Under the new approach, an established 501c3 will oversee the administrative side, including compliance, finances, and global grant making. Harry and Meghan will continue to guide the mission itself, setting priorities and choosing the initiatives and partnerships they support. Tash, extraordinary. Extraordinary on so many levels that the year ends with Harry and Meghan saying, okay, the kids are coming, they are coming. Oh, but it's going to be for charity, but don't worry, we're actually going to introduce a fiscal sponsorship model. That's shameless.
I mean, the sponsorship model as well, the perfect timing, you know, their children being a prince and princess, it is obviously all about getting attention and using the links to the royal family. There's nothing new there. That to me almost sounds like the Archewell is slowly wrapping up. They're now changing it to a different model where it's completely managed by other people, where they then add in, but Harry and Meghan will, of course, still have a little input to decide which direction they want it to go in. That to me, I'm reading that as perhaps Archewell hasn't been doing as great. We know that they have reshuffled their staff countless times. They can't afford the big players. And it just doesn't sound good that that organization is going forward. But then the fact that it's registered in Delaware, companies only have to declare 5% of donations that come into them. They can spend the rest on overheads. We know that Meghan will have rather large overheads, first class travel, first class accommodation, new wardrobe for every appearance. I'm in no doubts that that often gets recharged under expenses. But when it comes to the children, this is something, again, I find hypocritical with this couple. They're boxing their children into a lifestyle that's not their choice. They originally said they didn't want titles for their children. We know that that was a lie. They just weren't happy with Archie not being a prince. They tried to lie and manipulate people and made people believe it was because he was a biracial child, and it was just because he had to wait until King Charles became king and then he would be automatically entitled. But they are using the children in such a way that they are pushing them now into the public sphere. And they said that the reason that they didn't want them to have titles is so they wouldn't have the obligations. and they can forge their own path in life. Harry and Meghan are always warbling on about forging their own paths, but quite clearly here they're now forging the paths of their children, and we all know it's all going to boil down to commercial gain. It's not about protecting the children. It's now, I think, using the children for attention, for money, for extra links to the royal family. I mean, if they do take the dukedom off of Harry, will the king have enough strength in him to take the prince and princess titles off his grandchildren? Highly doubtful. So, of course, Meghan, I believe, is now going, right, we might lose our titles, but we need to now really use the children.
Totally right, Tash. That is the correct analysis. In 2026, Archie and Lily are being sold. Archie and Lily are going to be front and center of this mission to try and save Harry and Meghan's career. Why else would they mention them in a report like this? They're 6 and 4, goddammit, and you said they were going to be private citizens. This is so transparent, Tash, what they are attempting to do. But first, as we get older, you notice it. After a cold day, hard workout, even a long week, recovery just isn't as quick as it used to be, right? That bounce back factor matters. And it turns out the secret isn't luck, it's stem cells, your body's built-in repair crew. With age, that system slows down. Fewer cells, weaker signals, slower recovery. That's exactly why Qualia created Qualia Stem Cell. Think of it this way. Your cells are powerful. Qualia Stem Cell helps keep them that way. It's crafted with nature's heavy lifters, sea buckthorn royal jelly, and more to support your body's natural repair system so you can keep moving, healing, and thriving. You don't have to accept slowing down. This is about supporting better aging by reactivating the systems that help you bounce back. And it's refreshingly simple. You take it just 4 days a month. So if you've ever felt like your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to, whether it's after a tough workout, getting sick, or just the wear and tear of life, this is for you. Qualia Stem Cell was designed to support your body's natural repair systems, helping you heal, recover, and keep going strong. And right now, you can try it for up to 50% off at qualialife.com/Dan. And here's a bonus. Use the code Dan for an additional 15% off your order. So that's QUALIA life.com/Dan. Your body's built to repair itself. Qualia just helps it do it that better. And a big thanks, by the way, to Qualia for sponsoring this episode of Outspoken. But now, back to the show.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, they're babies at the end of the day. They didn't ask to be prince and princesses. That's been forced on them in a country that fought a war to abolish their links to the monarchy. So that's not going to help them growing up if they're ever allowed to go to a normal school, of course. But amongst their peers, they're always going to have that hanging over their head, as it were. As I said, at least we have titles in the UK. And if they'd have grown up with their cousins over here, it would have been quite the norm to hang around with other little prince and princesses and earls and ladies and dukes. But for them in America, they're going to be very much pushed out in no man's land, really, with regards to that. And we know that Meghan will insist that the children are called by their titles at all times. But yes, I think it's really sad that the way that Harry complained about absolutely everything to do with his childhood, but I believe that he's making decisions that are going to affect his children far worse than any decisions that Charles and Diana ever made. I mean, at least they had the support of an entire family network around them growing up in that royal sphere with cousins and siblings that all went through the same thing. Archie and Lily have got no one apart from their parents, and we know their parents are not about philanthropy. They're about topping up their bank accounts.
Totally. They are being raised in the same way that Michael Jackson raised Prince and Blanket, and it's weird because let's just think about this for 1 second. So they are now being used in Archewell's charitable report. Because let's be honest, the 5 years of Archewell has been a total disaster. They have made no impact on the world. Certainly haven't changed the world as Harry and Meghan promised that they were going to once they left the British royal family. So
No.
the kids are being dragged in to try and save this. But the kids aren't allowed to do any of the normal things that come with being a privileged family. They're not allowed to go and appear with Harry if he's playing polo somewhere, or go on a nice trip, or be on the Buckingham Palace balcony, meet the family at the palace, form the relationships with the cousins. And then I think about the biggest irony of it all, Tash, which is that Harry and Meghan have to keep their children as prisoners in the United States because they cannot control the paparazzi, in the same way that in the United Kingdom, the paparazzi is completely controlled if you're a member of the royal family, which is why you never see the shots of George and Louis and Charlotte on the way to school ever, because there are these rules. So Harry and Meghan have had to actually give their children a much more fucked up life in California because of all of their weird issues with privacy than they ever would have had in the United Kingdom. Yet at the same time, it's like, we're not going to hide away from using the children when we need it. It's just so mucked up.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they went from, even at one point, I was actually thinking, well, Harry's been true to his word. We haven't seen the children. They haven't been used. And then in walks 2025 and bang. I mean, we've seen the children have been more exposed this year than ever before. There's been accidental, on purpose, I would say, leaks that have gone out with the pictures' faces. It was released. There was a perfect photograph of the children in Gloria Steinem's home that was just facing at the perfect angle for the photographs to be taken. Oh, look,
Oh,
there's
what a
Archie and
happy
Lily's real face.
coincidence.
I know, what a coincidence. Then you had the surf school as well. You know, Harry's there having pictures by the professional photographers that take photographs of people at these sort of places, you know, as a keepsake. That accidentally on purpose got released of Archie's face. And then, you know, there's a video clip, isn't there, a Halloween with them running around. It's all this accidentally, oh no, that wasn't meant to happen. Yes, it was. You've been gradually pushing the children out there, but never more than 2025. We've heard them singing, we've heard them talking, we've had them playing, we've had every photograph, well, the backs of their heads, the majority of it. But as I said, all you've got to do is to just go to Google. You can see what the children look like. Their images are out there. It's just Harry and Meghan haven't done the official press release yet.
Totally. It's so creepy. It is so creepy. And you're right.
Mercenary.
It started the year with Meghan when she was sent home from the Invictus Games. It started with her using the children there. And then it ends with them justifying the change to their charity on their children who are 4 and 6 years old. Totally weird. Now, look, Tash, in terms of the war with the media, it's not just Meghan Markle versus the Daily Mail. It's also Harry versus the Daily Mail. But honestly, if anyone's looked into this case, it is so unwise. This was the latest headline just before Christmas. Harry's legal team threatened private investigator and Daily Mail hacking case. Researcher wanted Glenn Mulcair, who denies tapping phones for the newspaper, to raise his game, the High Court hears. And here's the story. A private investigator who denied hacking phones for the Daily Mail received threats from the Duke of Sussex's legal team. The High Court has heard Prince Harry, Baroness Lawrence and Sir Elton John are among 7 claimants seeking damages over allegations that the newspaper's staff hired private investigators to place listening devices inside cars, blag private records and access private phone conversations. Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, has described the allegations as lurid and simply preposterous. An email disclosed to the High Court on Thursday shows that Glenn Mulcair, a key figure in the phone hacking scandal that engulfed Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, received threats from researchers working for the legal team representing the Duke and others. Mr. Mulcair admitted hacking into the Mail on behalf of rival newspapers, but never for the Mail, one email showed. Graham Johnson, a convicted phone hacker and former tabloid reporter who has been working as a legal researcher for the claimants, wrote to colleagues in April 2016, "I'm trying to get Mulcair to raise his game, but he neither responds to threats or praise. I have bollocked him several times." Elsewhere, he added, "I do not think Glenn will jump through many more hoops for myself without an arrangement in place. Glenn is a person who is easily upset and is one of those buy-ups who will go offside at the drop of a hat. However, I think with more funding, I can do what you say." The emails refer to weekly money and threats. Financial backers of press reform, including Max Mosley, were seemingly kept abreast of developments. And as the Royal News Network surmised after reading that, so Harry's legal team was threatening a private investigator they wanted as a witness. Classy. If Harry wants to drive himself off the cliff, then he can do so, but the rest of the plaintiffs here should probably walk away. I mean, Tash, he is losing. And this is the problem when you go into bed with criminals. And I just really wish people would think more about that when Harry's talking about how he's holier than thou and he's trying to hold the British press to account. Harry, you are working with the actual criminals. I'm not exaggerating there, Tash. These are convicted phone hackers, the worst convicted phone hackers in British history. Those are the people you're relying on, Harry. And surprise, surprise, they're dodgy as hell.
Yeah, I mean that's saying that Graham Johnson he's been bullying people, threatening people, and bribing people to basically give what, false witness statements? Is this exactly what their court case has been built on? Because it seems with the other person recently saying that his witness statement was a forgery, this whole case seems to be completely built on sand. But there seems to be an awful lot coming out, which could turn into a different sort of lawsuit. Who knows? Because there seems to be a lot of bribery that's been going on to get people to come forward, and of course, threats. Now, some could say it's Harry's legal team. He's not aware of the dirty tactics going on. But I've seen Harry, not personally, but we've read about Harry using dirty tactics himself. Because when the car chase, the near-death experience happened in New York, the original letter that the police wrote said that they weren't concerned, that they were, that they weren't making any arrests. Harry's then written to them, threatening them to rewrite the letter to make it very clear that they will be making arrests, or he'll get Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, onto them. So Harry is definitely on board with these sort of tactics because he's used it against the New York Police Department. But it is shocking to think that here he is, holier than thou, preaching from his white tower to do with people's ethics. And he's involved with, to a degree, because I do not believe a lawyer would act without their client's consent, but tactics that are, what, pressuring false statements off of people. I mean, that's criminal in itself.
Well, it potentially is, and we will see. But this was a very, very unwise path for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to go down, because actually what it's